Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first ever virtual conference by YNPN Phx, Keeping Up During COVID-19. I'm Julie Euber, current president of YNPN Phx. As our monthly in-person events were canceled, we knew we needed to change to find the best way to serve our sector, an experience many of you, I'm sure, can relate to. Whether you are currently working in the nonprofit sector or not, YNPN Phx is here to make sure you have the tools you need to best serve your communities. You're welcome to join the conference all day or pop in for the sessions that interest you. Right now, all attendees are muted and your videos are hidden, but there will be opportunities to interact throughout the conference. Following each session, there will be time for questions, but we will not have time to respond to all of them, potentially. Don't worry, to ensure that the presenters are able to answer all questions, we will follow up with you after the event to take and answer them. We do have a change in our schedule. Elise Guidas is no longer able to close out our conference as much as she would have loved to join us today. Instead, I will be giving my closing remarks early during a portion of her time slot, and then we will begin happy hour a little earlier than scheduled. You can find our schedule at ynpnphx.org/blog in the second listed post. We hope you stick around after the conference for the virtual happy hour. The YNPN Phx board and I thank you greatly for being here. We would also like to thank our sponsors, A New Leaf, Four Leaf, and Roaming Hills for making this conference and the work of YNPN Phx possible. Many of you may be wondering what YNPN Phx is and what we do. Excuse me. We are the Young Nonprofit Professionals Network of Phoenix. We are a network of diverse thought leaders dedicated to creating a thriving, resilient, and inclusive social sector in Phoenix. We are part of a national network of chapters across the country and have been serving nonprofit professionals for over a decade. Each month, we host an event that provides networking opportunities and professional development to young nonprofit professionals. I encourage you to become a member to take full advantage of these events. Typically, members attend events for free while non-members pay for individual events they attend. Coming up in June, we'll be hosting a happy hour on Zoom and are working on a virtual equity, diversity, and inclusion seminar. Stay connected to our social media and website or become a member today to be the first to know when the dates are set. If you're looking to bring your participation to the next level, consider joining one of our committees. As president of YNPN Phx, I am over the moon excited to share that we have 4 hardworking, incredible committees: programs, communications, development, and membership. Please feel free to email me at president@ynpnphx.org, and I'll put that in the chat. If you are interested, and I will connect you with the appropriate committee chairs. We will have a slideshow between each presentation with more information about our organization and how to become a member. Over the past month, YNPN Phx has created a conference for young nonprofit professionals to help them keep up during a pandemic. It might feel like we're done with this whole pandemic thing by now, but unfortunately, that's not the case. Especially as our world slowly opens up again, people are less careful and a second wave looms in the distance. For many of us, it's changed the way we are able to serve our mission. Now, more than ever, it's important to find ways to connect to your mission and who you serve, but also to give yourself graces in time when both physical and mental health are threatened. Thank you for taking the time and for recognizing the importance of growing your skills and knowledge. We are also in the midst of a revolution against police brutality that is perpetuated by a culture of white supremacy. The pandemic and the revolution are in many ways interconnected. People like to say that disease does not discriminate, but it's just not that simple. If you already have less access to resources like healthcare and do not have the same amenities or opportunity for social distance in your community, you will be more greatly affected. Our current pandemic has run along and deepened lines of pre-existing inequality. In fact, in the US, Black Americans are more than twice as likely to die from COVID-19 as white Americans. But the unrest we are experiencing now is a result of systemic racism that spans time and space in a heartbreaking and, in many cases, life-threatening manner. And now we grieve for George Floyd, Deion Johnson, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. While recognizing that those of us who are white will never fully understand what it's like to face racism every day, there are a few key ways we can all join the call to take action against systemic racism. Public displays and protests are important to making people, and especially elected officials, uncomfortable about the status quo. In some cases, you might need to feel a little uncomfortable too. We must continue to educate ourselves on how to do better, because the process of understanding how living in a racist society impacts the way we think and operate should never end, both on a professional and personal level. Donate what you can to support organizations on the front line. Also, vote. Keep in mind that your mayor and city legislators are the ones who hire your police chief. Let them know how you feel with your voice and your vote in local elections. Also, keep pushing for change in the nonprofit sector. Our sector also suffers from having roots in a racist society. This is an important time to not only reflect on that, but also act. Use your voice and challenge others when you recognize inequality in your work. Keep educating yourself so you get even better at recognizing it. And as a note, if you're white like me, people of color should not have to bear the full burden of calling out inequality or educating us about race. There are many great books and resources online to help with self-education and self-awareness. In the same vein, don't just take my word for it. Listen to and learn from diverse voices. Seek them out. Consider how your organization is structured. Does your board lack diversity? A 2017 study found that 90% of chief executives, 90% of board chairs, and 84% of board members are white. This is an issue that YNPN Phx continues to work on in our own organization, knowing that we are not yet as reflective of our community as we would like to be. To ignore these statistics is to perpetuate them. But also, contributing to this movement matters, and it's bigger than you might know. I want to share a personal story to close out my remarks. My brother has autism, and he can't always comply with exactly what others want him to do. Throughout the years, we've seen many cases where police misread the behavior of a person with autism or doesn't know how to interact with them, leading to violence and a higher rate of arrest. My brother has been in a group home where they would threaten to call the police if he didn't behave and were willing to act on that threat. I am scared by what would happen if he ever did face the cops. What's happening now isn't about our story. But when you are out there fighting for your rights, you are making this a safer world for my brother too. Big crowds and large noises aren't something my brother can navigate. He doesn't always have a voice in important conversations. But the Black community is out in the streets risking their lives to end police brutality that he is also susceptible to. I will never be able to thank you enough for that. I grew up keenly aware that the world was not built for my brother, even though it could be. We need to work together to build a world that does not privilege a certain type of person. Black lives matter, and I stand with you. Thank you. I also have the great opportunity to announce some of our speakers and to introduce them. And it is my pleasure to now introduce you to our keynote speaker, Thomas Barr. Thomas is the Executive Director for Local First Arizona, the largest coalition of local businesses in North America. He advocates for a strong local business community that contributes to building vibrancy, equity, and prosperity across the state. He's also a former president of YNPN Phx. Please join me in welcoming Thomas Barr as he presents on Leading Through a Pandemic, a call for young professionals to rise up for their communities.
Thank you so much, Julie. That was really, really moving. Appreciate you sharing your story and everything with everyone this morning. So I am not scripted. I'm not usually a scripted person at all. So we are going to have hopefully a super interactive presentation this morning. I'm very excited to give back and do this today. As Julie mentioned, I was a previous president of YNPN Phx, I think in 2016, something like that. And just super supportive of the work this organization does to empower young professionals in the nonprofit sector to have access to resources, tools, information to grow and thrive and be leaders. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Sorry about this. Okay. Great. All right, I think it's coming up. So for those of you that don't know me, very nice to meet you. Thank you for taking the time to participate today. My name is Thomas Barr. I'm the Executive Director for Local First Arizona. We are a statewide organization that advocates for and provides resources, opportunities, and a voice for the small business community in Arizona. And we address the systemic barriers that exist that exclude communities from participating in local economies. So all of our work is surrounded around building more localized wealth and control to our communities throughout Arizona. We were founded in 2003. I've been on this team for 8 years now, and we have over 30 staff that work on a wide variety of programs and resources throughout the state. So super privileged to do this work. And I always begin my talks and presentations by naming that I am a man of privilege. And that privilege has given me the opportunity to do a lot of the things that I have been able to do to accomplish what I've been able to. And each day I commit myself to using my privilege to fight for others that were not given the privilege that I was, and continue to have to fight for rights that I was, and privileges that I was born with. So I want to start this morning by telling a little bit about my story, because for a lot of people who are actually mixed races, it's an interesting conversation when you actually appear one way, but have a background that might not be how you appear. So my story is actually not my story at all. My story actually begins long before I was born, with my grandmother, Carmen Benitez, who is makes me a third generation Arizonan, who was born in Mesa. She was actually born in an adobe house on a dirt floor around the corner from the first Bash's supermarket that was built in what is now Ocotillo, Arizona, which is just south of Chandler, a very different community than what it was before. And her husband, my grandfather, who I never met, actually, he died when my mom was 13 years old in a car accident, came from Mexico, from Guadalajara. And they had their family, grew up in Goodyear. And when my grandmother was growing up, she attended school in Mesa. Her first language was actually Spanish. And in second grade in Arizona at the time, one day in class, she, as a child, naturally speaking Spanish, you were kind of made to learn English very quickly, not only for yourself, but actually too often. And even in today's time, for those that experience this, children are usually the ones that interpret for your parents, who many of the time may not speak English. So my grandmother learned English as her second language, and when she was in second grade, spoke out Spanish in class, and her teacher actually came up to her and taped her mouth shut with duct tape because she did not want her to speak Spanish any further. So as you could imagine, a young Latina growing up in that community and having something traumatic like that happen to her, she actually chose with my grandfather to not teach my mom and my uncles and my aunts Spanish growing up in Goodyear, because they did not want them to experience the same things that she experienced and they experienced growing up. They wanted them to only speak English so that they wouldn't have to go through things like that. And so I just kind of start with this story because I feel like there are, all of you have backgrounds and experiences and things that you have gone through, your family has gone through. There's pain, there's turmoil, there's so much that we have to endure. And many of us walk each day on the backs of the privilege of those that experienced much worse before us. And I make it my commitment every day to recognize that there are others still experiencing these types of things every day, which is why I commit myself to doing the work that I do, which I think of as elevating a voice for the voiceless. My commitment is to work for the small business community, for small businesses of color, for Black and brown locally owned businesses who do not have the same power, the same opportunity as the corrupt large businesses that do control our economy now. And so I hear the voice of my grandmother, and may she rest in peace, as she recently died, every day in the work that I do. So I think it's really important that we, all of you, think of that story of the person in your life or those around you that motivates you to continue doing your work and lead. And to not just think of yourselves as young leaders, but to begin thinking of yourselves as leaders. And as I'll get into this through my talk, it's critically important that we have a desperate need for true leadership right now. There's a lot of false leadership. There's a lot of misguided leadership out there. There's a lot of pointing fingers. There's a lot of judgment as to what people are doing right or wrong. And I think it's critically important that we all own what true leadership is. So I want to take a minute, and I think there's a chat box. I would love if those participating today are able to share in the chat box maybe a word, anything that you would think of as to what you view as leadership. So if people could just take a minute, just drop words, experiences, anything that you can think of that you think of that represents leadership. And I'd love to see that right now. I know there's more of you out there. Empathy, humility, serving others, building others up, service to others, empathy, example of strength and love, vulnerability, safe spaces, serving others, responsibility, vision, vulnerability, humility, accountability, respect, vision, integrity, listening, learning, action, collectivity, direction, risk-taking, inspiration. I love it. So I think that we could all agree that there are common things that we think of in other leaders that we try to own ourselves and try to represent ourselves. But I think what happens along the way is that we get distracted by the urgency to try to correct, or the urgency to try to prove one way or the other, rather than owning and living into these words and these practices that exemplify true leadership. So the next thing that I would love, and this is just because I like to go off the cusp sometimes, is I would love to hear what you all think leadership is not. And this could be, I mean, you can name a person, you can name a word. I would just love to also hear from people what you really view leadership is not, if you could drop that into the box as well. Micromanaging, distrust, ego, power abuse, top of the pyramid, boss, petty, one-way communication, ruling with fear, controlling, oppression, dominance, dictatorship, giving orders, stubborn, toxic. Great. So as leaders, as I'm assuming all of you are in positions of leadership growth or aspiring leadership or anything like that, I think that it's really important that, through my experience of being a young professional working in this sector, I've seen a lot of people tie their title to leadership when that is just the most completely false way and wrong way of thinking of leadership. Every person that we hire at Local First Arizona, one of the first conversations with them that we have is that they are stepping into a role of leadership. And that it's irregardless of whether or not their title is a coordinator, their title is a manager, their title is a specialist, an administrator. Every single person that works for our organization is a leader. And the reason is that the work that we do at Local First Arizona, and we talk about it, is that every morning we wake up and the work that we're doing is fighting against some of the largest, most powerful institutions that exist. And in order to contribute to that work, you have to be a leader. You have to be a leader in the space. And that does not have to do with your title. Every single person in our organization is a leader. So think of yourselves in that context. Think of yourselves as what you represent, what you do every day, the conversations that you have, how do you speak to people, how you treat people. In all the words that were shared, it's very clear. Leadership is not giving orders. It is not directing and demanding. It is not oppressing. It is not creating expectations that are false. It is leading by example. It is involving others. It is care. It is empathy. It is all of these things that we should be leaning more into. And you all can do that regardless of the role that you're in. So, I was thinking about doing this presentation, and I was, I get very consumed and tired by, there's a large business community out there, and there's books, and there's, I show this here. You just type in leadership, and there's 2.7 billion results on Google. And I think all of you would attest that there's a true lack of leadership in today's world, right? But what is it? I mean, we have all these people coming out claiming, and nothing wrong with Simon Sinek. He's got great material. But I share this. There's so many people that read this book and lean into this man that I would actually call a leader, and claim to live it, right? And they claim to possess the characteristics of what a leader is. And we share the books, and we go to conferences, and we view webinars on leadership, and we talk about leadership. But what really is leadership? We see these graphics all the time, right? And we all can, because we all can relate to this specific instance, right? We know that a boss will be somebody that tries to demand something out of you, but a leader is somebody that involves you, somebody that works with you, and we all know what that feels like. But why is it that in today's world we are seeing such a lack of leadership? And really, what we need to remember, what we need to recall, is that we right now are leading. All of you are leading in completely unprecedented times. And I want to recognize the diverse backgrounds of everybody on this call. And that's, I described this yesterday as, right now we're really in a battlefield. We're dealing with two pandemics in itself. We're dealing with a virus pandemic and an economic crisis, while we're dealing with 400 years of unrecognized and unrecognized racist systems that have suppressed and oppressed Black communities for the entirety of our country, that many people still refuse to own, that many people still refuse to recognize. And so you are truly stepping into and continuing to evolve into true unprecedented moments that calls for true leadership. Our country has grown the racial wealth divide more than ever. If you look at this graphic here, the average, the median wealth for the Black community has actually decreased since 1983. And if you look at that compared to the white median wealth, there are, I mean, we could pull statistic after statistic after statistic to show clearly that there is racial disparities in every way in our country, and there are still people that refuse to believe it. And so I hear you, I feel you, the anger, the frustration, the angst, the need and the desire to be loud and to be vocal. But really we need that. We need to continue that, but we also need to figure out how can we convince more people to understand, and how can we influence more people and bring them to the conversation. I've been having conversations this week. I have never seen more white people recognize Black Lives Matter than ever before. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the video. I don't know if it's that all of these things have now finally come to fruition and people are starting to recognize it. But we have a true opportunity to not make people feel bad, but to help them understand what they've been missing and help them understand what they need to start doing now. Like, the door has to always be open, and we have to learn how to have those productive conversations. We're living in a time where a company such as Amazon, which is praised as a successful, fantastic company that, you know, delivers goods and services to everyone in the world, is actually depleting the number of jobs in our country. For every 2 jobs they create, 3 local jobs we lose. We're literally going broke by investing in a company that is divesting everything from us. The owner of that company is becoming richer and richer by the minute, while we continue to grapple with and try to figure out how we can solve all of these local problems in our communities. For every 10 million in sales this company makes, right? They're stripping away jobs, and the jobs that they're creating are unsafe and not good for the workers. They are hardly producing the quality of life that should exist in a country such as ours at this point in time of history, right? So we need to continue questioning the constructs of our society and how we as leaders are having productive conversations surrounding how to convince people and how to help people see the way that we're operating is actually working against us, right? There's a great book called Winners Take All. I'm sure a lot of you have read it, by Anand Giridharadas, where he talks about, you know, we exist in a capitalist system where businesses, many large businesses, will provide donations and give to charities, when on the operational side, their actual existence is contributing to those problems more than how they're helping those problems be resolved, right? I just saw an article that Amazon is converting one of its warehouses in Seattle into a homeless shelter. I mean, the irony, right? A company that actually arguably contributes to homelessness is creating a homeless shelter. Like, we need to wake up and we need to address these issues. It's the same example as Kraft Foods, who in the book Winners Take All donates money to a playground to be built, right? When arguably the same company is actually contributing to childhood obesity through the food that they're making, right? We have to look at how the system is constructed, and we have to advance conversations about how to change it. So like I said before, we are in a desperate moment for true leadership. I'll tell you time and time again, and you know, you're probably laughing looking at this, but we are all caught and we are all guilty of doing this as we converse with people online. But because it's the simple thing to do is to have the argument, right? The simple thing to do is to go on Facebook and post how you feel, knowing that somebody that feels differently from you is going to come at you, and you go back and forth, and are not actually changing anybody's mind, right? I'm telling you, as young leaders, as leaders that are developing and growing, do not spend your time. We need more of your time focused on helping people learn and helping people grow than just having these arguments digitally. The piece of leadership that I see people figure out, that I see young people figure out, that not everybody figures out, is how do you rise above? How do you have the empathy to try to understand where the other person is coming from? And how do you have a true conversation, and how do you elevate above the natural feelings in your gut where you want to just have the hard conversation, right? And argue. President Obama came out late last year, and there was a lot of discussion about this, about how our true activism is not us proving others are less woke than we are, right? True activism is not putting online all the things that you're doing and getting likes from all the people in your circle, right? True leadership and activism is actually activating people that don't understand it to get involved in the movement. That is leadership. That is what we have to figure out. So I just wanted to give everybody just a little bit of background around Local First Arizona, the work we do, just to kind of share our story surrounding COVID, because I said that we would talk about COVID in this in this keynote. And I really, Julie and Megan reached out to me and said, would you do the keynote for this digital conference? I said, absolutely. I'm so excited. Really had no idea what I was going to talk about. I won't even tell them when I made the presentation, but it was, I felt I needed to address everything happening in the moment. So this isn't something that was created 3 weeks ago. I promise this was put together intentionally for this very morning. I'll tell you, through the COVID crisis, it's made me realize that it's ever more important that we're proactive about how things change by the hour, rather than preparing things down the road in the time that we're existing in now. So just to share you a little bit about Local First before I get into our COVID story. So Local First was grounded upon the principle that Arizona has existed for a long time as a place that not many people who live here are actually from here. If I asked, and I don't know if everybody on this call is actually in Arizona right now. I'm assuming most of you are. But if you are actually from Arizona and on this call, just put me or yes or something like that in the chat box. I would actually love to see who's in there. I bet it's no more than 20 of you. We're up to 5, 6, wow, 8. Okay. I don't know how many that is yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. In Arizona, but not from here. Okay, doesn't count. 17, I'm 18, told you, no more than 20. So that's actually not bad, because I think there's 50 or so people on the call today. Growing up here, for myself, Arizonans have always been 1/3 of people that live here. And that makes a very unique place for us, right? A lot of people come from the Midwest. A lot of people come from Chicago. And in growing up here, people were not proud of this place. I'll tell you that right now. And, we had to go to Walgreens to get a shirt that said Arizona. We couldn't get one from State 48. So it's a very unique thing to be from this place, actually. And for those of you that are from this place, you'll know that in the last 10, 15 years, things have just changed dramatically. People are getting tattoos with PHX on it, right? Arizona themed gifts and clothing is everywhere. You can't shop and do anything without there being an Arizona themed product. That did not exist, I promise you, 20 years ago. People were not proud of Arizona. We were just the place with the crazy sheriff. We beat the butt of a joke on the late night TV show. That was all we were known for. And so when Local First was started in 2003, one of the major reasons it was started was to connect people to place. And if you think about a place that people are proud of, I think of Chicago. Everybody on this call probably knows somebody from Chicago. If you're from Chicago, shout yourself out in the chat box. Love to hear it. I'm sure there's one of you. Maybe not. There you are. I knew it. There's a very proud, wow, 4. You guys are crazy. Chicago is a place that people are very proud of being from, right? But if you ask somebody from Chicago why they're proud of being from that place, you know what they tell you? It's the local businesses. They may not say that exactly, but they're going to say, you know what? It's the walkable streets. It's the restaurants. It's the feeling of the neighborhoods. When I ask people, they say, you know what? I go to the same barber I've gone to the last 15 years. I walk into a pizza shop. The owner is making my pizza. People have even told us, you know, I bank at the same bank my grandfather banked at when he was my age. I feel more connected to this city. I'll tell you one thing. People are not proud of Chicago because the Chicago Cubs won baseball for 100 years, right? They lost baseball for 100 years and still sold out Wrigley Field. So you look at Arizona and you say, well, what the hell is going on, right? I mean, the Diamondbacks have like a bad inning and people are like, I don't know if I want to commit to this team. We have a lower than average voter turnout, lower than average volunteer rate, right? So our organization was starting to connect people to place. The way you do it is through locally owned businesses. If people feel more connected to the businesses in their community, they're going to be more engaged. They're going to feel more connected to it. They're going to see the plaque of the T-ball team on the back counter of the bagel shop you go to and naturally know, oh, that owner's got my kids back, right? There are studies that show when people are more connected to place, there is more prosperity there. So that's where our organization was truly started. And we've just owned the buy local message for years. You go anywhere in the state, you're going to see a buy local sticker. The local first directory gets searched 70,000 times a month by people looking for local businesses. We are truly helping and guiding people and have for the last almost 20 years to own the buy local message. And localism is important, not just for connection to place, but it's important for jobs, right? Think about the Amazon statistic. If we were investing more in localized jobs in Arizona, then we would actually have better jobs for people that are living here. It creates more economic sense. For every $100 spent at a local business, 45 stays in Arizona. Same $100 spent at a chain, only $13 stays here. And then it builds more self-reliance. When there are paths to entrepreneurship, we believe entrepreneurship can be a path out of poverty, right? If you can build wealth for yourself and for your family, you'll be self-reliant rather than reliant on extractive systems that actually pull wealth out of our community, right? So, you know, as we look at the components of developing self-reliance, we've been working on the last, many years on access to capital, collaboration among businesses, building a true marketplace for local businesses to thrive, and making sure our business community is strong and competitive. These are all things that don't happen overnight, but we've been working on for many years. But in an instant, and I would say on March 14th, all of that came to a complete halt as the COVID-19 pandemic hit our state. And I know all of you know this, I know many of you and have seen many of you and talked with many of you through this pandemic and know that all of you have been reacting, and we've all been reacting to how do we pivot, how do we lead, how do we adapt ourselves to this time. But I have never seen as much attention as we have over the last 11 weeks regarding the importance of the small business community. The pandemic has exposed the weaknesses of our economy, the weaknesses that have been built by a capitalist system that has strengthened powerful companies and institutions and weakened our local economies and local control over how we can build wealth for ourselves. And I know you all saw it. You've read the stories. You've seen the corruption. I mean, for those of you following the Paycheck Protection Program, saw that, the steakhouse and the Potbelly shops and the Los Angeles Lakers even came in and got access to funding that was allocated for small businesses. And I'm just here to tell you, this isn't something new. This is something that happens every single day, all the time. This is how our communities are constructed within the system. So Local First Arizona acted quickly, and we needed to, and we had to, based on how our organization exists. Reacting and putting into place procedures and a response to what we needed to do for the community wasn't new to us, because that's how we operate. That's who we are, right? And so be thinking about every day, are you in a position to lead? Are you in a position to lead with your company? If the worst thing was to happen tomorrow, are you positioned to thrive through a crisis, right? And some of you may feel over the last 10 to 11 weeks, you've been thriving. Some of you may feel tired and exhausted. And some of you may feel that maybe you're not in the position that you want to be in order to truly lead. And all of those are legitimate feelings. But what we did at Local First was we knew we had to move quickly. So the second that we saw actually what was happening in Seattle, we moved our team to work from home immediately, because we knew we were going to have to be nimble and work very hard in order to respond. So I'm not going to touch on every single thing that we did, but I will tell you the first thing that we did is we focused on taking care of our team. We moved all of our team to working from home, made sure they had internet, made sure they had phones, made sure they had access to all the desks and equipment they were going to need to operate and effectively. Our leadership team of Local First that includes 9 directors on our team had nightly calls, I want to say for 15 days at 8 p.m. Discussing and deliberating what move we had to make next, coming up with ideas. How do we not only fund our organization, but care for the community that we are here to serve for? And so on, I want to say our 3rd or 4th call, it was brought up, we really need to start a relief fund for small businesses, because the federal funding is not going to help everyone, and it's not going to come quick enough. And I'll just name, many of you may not know this, when we hear small business from the government, they're talking about any business with less than 500 employees. I will tell you that most small businesses have less than 20, and I would say a lot of them have less than 10. So we came up with the idea to raise money to deploy micro grants to small businesses with less than 3 employees that had children at home and relied on their business as their sole source of income. These were businesses, food trucks, caterers, salons, barbers, carpet cleaners for homes. People did not want people coming into their homes, right? All these businesses that went from 100% of their profit down to 0, like 100% of any profit being just completely cut out. And in just over 7 weeks, we were able to raise, we're now at about $1.2 million with money still coming in. We've now funded over 450 family-owned businesses and impacted over 1,000 jobs across the state. I'm just naming this as we were able to pivot and react based off of the leadership principles that we hold as an organization. And so how you position yourself every day is important so that you can respond to crisis needs and everything you do at all times. You need to be diverse. You need to be empathetic. You need to always be questioning your policies and principles. You need to be empowering your team members. One of the other things we did is we went to our team the first week of working from home, and we said, we're going to give you an additional 3 PTO days off that you all have to take in the next 6 weeks, because we knew this is exhausting. This is tiring work. And as we continue through this, we continue to lead, because that's what we have to do. That's how we are positioned as an organization and how we are positioned as individuals. And I'm not posting these things and saying these things that this is just me at Local First and my ideas. Most of the ideas, all of the things are coming from within the organization, from the coordinators and the managers and the specialists and the administrators, based on the things that they're seeing and they're experiencing and how they feel we need to position ourselves as an organization and the things that we need to be doing every single day. And what you have to do as a leader is, again, have that door open at all times. The bureaucracy of a lot of institutions that I see pushes down ideas and only holds them at the top, only allows equity to happen when it makes sense visually, does not have true democratic ways of ensuring that your strongest voices can be heard represented, and then executed, right? Because we have this structure set up, we have been able to react in the best ways we possibly can, and are being called on from other institutions saying, thank you for your leadership. We're actually going to step up and do something too. And that level of influence is what we all need to be aspiring for, in order to involve more people in the conversation, and to invite more people to take a stance, invite more people to learn, and invite more people and organizations and leaders like yourselves to make a difference. So as you leave this today, and as you continue to think through this today, I'd just like to pose the question, are you positioned to lead? Do you wake up every day and actually feel that you are in a position to lead? And are you doing the necessary things, self-care, education, acknowledgement of privilege and power, and systems and how they're constructed, and your position within those systems? Are you doing all those things and setting yourself up to respond to the next crisis, and to respond to things as they stabilize? And I would say you not all need to be asking yourselves this, but like I said before, we're in a desperate need for true leadership, and you all have a responsibility to do this. So thank you very much. I think I'm over my time. Like I said, I ramble a little bit. I appreciate all of you very, very much. I don't have my contact info on here, but you can reach me, thomas@localfirstac.com. I don't know if we have time for questions, but I think you guys have a break or something like that. So I'll hang around.
Thomas, I can help with that. Actually, we do have
Cool.
time for questions. You still have actually a good 10 minutes if you'd like to take questions.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sure. If anybody has questions, I'm here. We can hang out for a few minutes, see if anybody's thinking anything.
And you're welcome to add those questions to the chat.
Liz has one. All right. She's asking if she can speak.
Yeah, please go ahead, Liz.
Is there any way to unmute her?
Hello.
There she is.
Yay. Hi, good morning.
Hey.
And I just ran from a meeting and it caught like the tail end of this, Thomas, and it was still really amazing. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
And pardon me if you touched on this, but something that we talk about, I'm on the YNPN board, my name's Liz Salzar. Something that we've talked about in our own professional development is how to lead from every position, right? From every title that you have, no matter what it is. We realize that a lot of people on the call or people that are YNPN members come to us in all different parts of their career, whether they're just starting out or maybe they've been doing it for a long time, or they're just interested in the social sector in general. As a leader, how have you empowered or encouraged people who maybe aren't a leader by title, but encourage them to sort of lead from every position, right? Whether you're the person that is sitting at a front desk, greeting people, or you're an ops person, or you're, community engagement or whatever it is, what would be your advice for people to sort of step into a leadership role who maybe have never done that?
Yeah, I'd say first is scrap the title. Like, I shouldn't even put my own title on this thing today. Leadership is not titles. Leadership is not positions. Leadership is what you do and how you act every single day. So some of the things that I put into practice to try to be a good leader is a sharer of information. And the ways you share that information with others is important too. So whatever the issue is, or the opportunities are, the social issues are that you care about, how can you be an aggregate of information and share accurate information with people. I think people tend to respect people who are conveners of good information and good discussion. And you can actively do that every single day. No one's holding you back from doing that. Another thing that I do is have more internalized, structured thinking groups or peer groups of people that can help you figure out the things that maybe there are some structural things you need to do to advance yourself in leadership. And so those are really important. And then the third is investing in relationships. The opportunities to lead are often based on the work we put in the long term to build relationships with people, to build trust. And so the people that you know, or the types of people in your circles that you want to know or you want to learn from, work on those relationships. And that doesn't mean asking them to just help you or asking them to be your friend. It means how can you involve yourself in diverse circles in order to advance your own knowledge and your own leadership skills so that you can work with those people in the long term. So that's what I'd recommend.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
We do have time for one more question if there are any others. Speak up in the chat.
You guys are lucky. My dog has not barked once. Just laying on the floor. Cool. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in. Thank you guys so much. Good luck with the conference the rest of the day. I'm just going to drop my email in here if anybody wants to reach out, or you can find me on the Twitter where I like to have lots of fun. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thank you, Thomas. We really appreciate it.